All right. To meditate the right way, to say it like that, to meditate the right way, because there is something such as the right way. You have a cause that creates a proper result in meditation practice. If we learn how that works, you can find the right way. If you start off with your practice, then I really recommend that you follow some practice sincerely over a long amount of time every day, and really make it a point to learn the technique as you have heard about it. For example, the technique that we learn here, to just practice it again and again. Sometimes, you will not feel much. Sometimes you will feel amazing things happening. Sometimes it just feels dreadful to sit down and meditate. That is perfectly normal. What matters is that you continue to do it just the way you've learned to do it, in exactly the same way. So after a while you will notice that there is a natural learning process by practicing the technique like this. You will notice naturally that you are building certain skills, that you know how to deal with yourself, with your emotions, with your thoughts, much, much better every single time you meditate. Sometimes you make big jumps, learning a lot about how you interact with life, what to do, and so forth, and how your response to life is like. So that is also very important, to become sensitive to the response that you have. What is happening in your life? Are there things going wrong? Are there things going right? Is there doubt? Is there fear, worries? All of this is supposed to be integrated into your practice. Life is not something that is different from your cushion when you meditate. It is something that enhances your meditation practice, that is like a training or like a playground. When you get out of the temple, when you get off your cushion, when you mix with other people, what's your response to all that? How do you react to other people? How do you react to yourself and your own feelings and emotions? Most of the time, most of us are pretty critical and very harsh towards ourselves. So we're not really allowing ourselves to feel, and that can get actually worse for people who do so-called spiritual practice. You might become super critical towards every little emotion that you have and say, I'm not supposed to be angry. I'm not supposed to suffer. I shouldn't suffer. I'm a meditator. I shouldn't feel jealousy or envy, or I shouldn't be here, as you mentioned, for example. All these kind of shoulds that we feel about ourselves, and the way we feel and the way we think, they can become more intense when you do meditation practice. For many people it does. They become super critical towards themselves. Very unkind. Unforgiving. Oh, I made a mistake, I got angry. I shouldn't get angry. Next time I will not get angry. That might be positive in some way. However, it doesn't help you to develop any skill on the path if you're not able to receive your anger, to open up to it and to realize that anger is like this, and to stay with that and notice it, investigate it, have a look at it. What's anger like? How is it like to be scared, to have fear? How is it like to worry? It's very important that we open up to these very human emotions that we feel. And gradually, the more you do that in your meditation practice, opening up to yourself, allowing yourself, giving yourself permission to feel, giving yourself permission to be distracted, the easier your practice becomes. Because you're not here as a tyrant, you're not here as a dictator or a manager or whatever. You're simply learning the skill of being here. No preference, no judgment, no struggling. You're not here as someone who struggles. You're just here. And that has to be learned. This is not a skill that we naturally have. It has to be learned. And in order to learn the skill to be here with yourself, to bear yourself at first, and then to receive yourself, and then to welcome yourself, that we have to sit every day, and also we have to sit when we don't want to sit. This is the sort of discipline we need to cultivate, particularly when you really don't feel like you want to sit. You often get the greatest gains. Sometimes life is so stressful, seemingly occupying so much of our attention, that we feel, I have no time, really. Today I have no time to sit at all. One of the reasons why I do these classes and why we have the retreats where I have to go twice daily and do guided meditation and teach, the reason for that is it kind of forces me to sit down and face myself. It's a forced break, a forced relaxation period. That's why I made this meditation center, why I opened this meditation center. It's not because I'm some sort of really highly accomplished master or something like that. Not at all. It keeps me on track. I have to sit down with you guys. I know you guys come, and then I do the guided meditation and talk a little bit about meditation. It's very good for me. So in a way, I'm a little bit selfish. I just sit up here and I do the practice. And also, I kind of have to do it even if the day is horrible. Today I had a horrible day. A horrible day. It was not pleasant at all. But at the degree it was horrible, it was also a great lesson to relax, to give it up, to stop fighting and struggling what is inevitable, to put it down. I notice my mind wandering off into the future. Oh my God, what if, and wandering off into the past. Oh, I wish I wouldn't have done that. Why did I just do that? We'll never do that again, like constantly, to a point where there's great anxiety and fear stirred up. I think we all know that kind of stuff. No? We all feel sometimes in our life that, this is just horrible. What is happening, Will I ever get out of this? The answer is absolutely yes, for sure. You will get out of it. Life goes on. Always does. So in these moments, even though I really don't like them, I feel I don't like them at all. I'd rather not have them. I learn the most. I learn the most in these moments. So it's kind of also a learning process for me to notice each time there is something really uncomfortable happening in life, that, there is some learning happening right now. It gives me some comfort. And after a while, it doesn't just feel like some sort of philosophy that you put on your fridge. You say like, every bad situation is a learning. But you know it, you feel it. Next time a bad situation arises, you feel, yes, there is my teacher. My teacher comes and visits me. Some people have these ideas that teachers are some people that are living somewhere out far in a remote area. Some very mystical people teaching you very highly fancy things, giving you initiation into their sacred circle. Not at all. A real teacher is someone, for a meditator, for someone that practices training their mind, cultivating their mind. A real teacher is someone that comes and kind of upsets you in some way, throws you into a bout of anxiety or throws you into some difficulty in life. And if you're lucky, at the same time, you will start to question yourself. So how do I respond to that? What's my response? How do I relate to this? Do I resist? And then you will learn, all by watching, just how much suffering lies in resistance. You could actually say that resistance itself is kind of this is what suffering is made of. Resistance. And then also, if you watch even more closely, you will notice that for there to be resistance, there must be something that resists. Now, if you become aware while you're resisting something in your life, you become aware at the same time, you see that there is resistance, then that gives it a change, doesn't it? It's not anymore like, I am resisting this, I don't like it, I want to get rid of this. But it's more like, oh, there's resistance. You take a step back. You actually watch your response to life. You are the one that sees how you relate to life. And that's a very interesting position, because you're not anymore involved. It's almost like getting out of a car, looking at the car from outside, not looking through the windshield, but looking at the car from the outside. If the car is supposed to be the emotion or something like that, you have a difficult emotion, you're resisting, you're fighting, let's say that's the car. You can be in the car and you can drive the car, or you can be outside of the car and you can look at the car. And that is a big difference. However, in the beginning, it's very difficult to kind of get out of the car. There's such a pull to be in the car, particularly if it's an unpleasant emotion. It almost feels like, this is who I am right now. This is really who I am. I'm such a mess right now. I felt it several times today. I felt like a mess, I felt like, oh my God, And there's this immense stress, and then it feels like I am in that stress. I am stressed. You all know that, right? Now that's where it gets interesting for me. Fortunately, throughout all the years of my practice, one thing that kicks in moments of stress is, oh, interesting. Stress. There is stress. What's going on there? And immediately my eyes go there. I look into my heart. I don't look around. Oh, I wish this would be better or that would be better. But I look into my heart and I see, wow, there is something cooking there. It's very unpleasant. Lots of smoke, lots of steam, lots of fire. And then I'm wondering, I really do take the time to actually stay back and watch the process of stress. And there is so much to learn from it if you're watching it with a certain attitude. The attitude, how can I let go of that one? How can I let go of that one? After all, we're practicing the Buddhist path because we want to find out if it works. Is it really true? Can we really find unshakable peace within? Is that really true? Or did the Buddha just invent some story and thousands, millions of people got hooked on the story? Or is it actually real? Is it practical? Is it doable for a normal person? As the Buddha advertises, the gate of the deathless is open right now. So how do I find that state in which there is no stress? It must be there in every moment. The Buddha mentions that several times throughout his teachings. It's in the present that these things happen. It is timeless. The word for it is akaliko. It is timeless. It is here and now. Immediately evident. To be seen here and now by the wise. So what does it mean? So when I suffer, then I want to find it out. Does it really work, right? Can I put it to use right now? And once you manage to put it to use through your own human effort, you actually make an effort. You look at the suffering with the agenda. I want to find out how to let go of that one. And you actually manage for the first time to really let go of suffering completely. Even in the face of it, even in the midst of it. You find the eye of the storm. That is a very powerful experience. This is big learning. You learn like this as a meditator. You don't learn from books. You don't learn because you've read a lot of things about meditation. This is child's play, having read a lot of books. Everyone can read books. But hardly anyone reads their suffering. That's where we like to look away, right? But that's where it all happens. This is where the magic happens, right where you suffer, right where you collide with life. That's where the magic happens. And you want to find out what is it that collides with life? Or what does life crash into here? What is it? Who is this me that has stress? Who is it? Buddha said that there is no such thing as a solid, independent self. A solid, independent me. So what does that mean in practical terms? Doesn't it feel like when you're stressed, doesn't it feel like, wow, I'm stressed, right? We all would say that. Hardly anyone would say, well, there is stress. We say, I am stressed, right? If we say there is stress, it's almost like it's not really my business. It's my neighbor, there is stress over there. It's not my stress, right? They have some stress there. It's your object, so it's not a threat, really. But I am stressed means you're on fire. Something is on fire, at least. And this meditation, this silent observation, is an invitation to find out what is stressed. And we can only do that if we're kind of plunging in the middle of stress and watching it. Watch it and get to understand the mechanics of stress. See, where does it begin? What is causing it? Where does it find its end? That's all that meditation is about. Buddhism in a nutshell, you can say, is, in the Buddha's own words, both formally and now, I have taught but suffering and the end of suffering. That's it. It's that simple. That's Buddhism. Buddhism is the art of understanding suffering and letting go of it. Letting go of stress. That's what it's all about. And it's for you. The Buddha didn't teach for his own pleasure. He taught for you. It is practical for everybody now. It's not some remote, distant truth that you find in books or from some fancy teachers. It's not like that at all. It's right now, here, evident. Is there stress? Is there suffering? And can you let go of it? Now, in order to say these things, right, to let go of suffering, we have to know what suffering is. So I cannot just say it's suffering, but we don't really have a clear idea of what suffering is, right? Some people think suffering, well, that's a migraine. Other people say suffering, or it's losing a lot of money. Other people say suffering is breaking up with your biggest love. Whatever. So what is suffering? So suffering is, there are three types of suffering, three types to understand suffering. The first one is the so-called suffering of suffering. It's the most evident and obvious form of stress. This is all the stuff that hurts, all the stuff you want to get away from. All the stuff, when it comes into your life, you have an immediate tendency of getting rid of it. So you all know what that means. It's easy to understand. I have it right now. I have it in my lower back. I have it in my knees. My knees are hurting. My lower back is hurting. It's like this. This is the suffering of suffering. It's unavoidable. It makes you move your body every few minutes. In fact, constantly. We're often moving constantly. Scratching here, scratching there. Always something going on. That's the suffering of suffering. Suffering of suffering is being confronted with stuff that you don't want to be confronted with, or being separated from things that you want to be confronted with. All of that is suffering. It's painful. It's stuff that we don't want. Okay? That's the first type. It's very simple to understand, the most easy to understand. The second type of suffering is a bit more subtle. It's called the so-called suffering of change. Suffering of change means that this is referring to all the things that you would consider pleasurable. With the first suffering, most people think, well, that covers it, right? All the things that hurt, all the things I don't like. That's suffering, yes. But now we go further and even understand that it's also those things we like that give rise to those things we don't like. Look at your life. Browse back through your life. It's oscillating, isn't it? It's not just a random or a direct linear development from A to B, isn't it? It's oscillating up and down, isn't it? Breathing in, breathing out. Or do you think life is linear? It isn't, right? How many times have you been happy in your life? Many, many times, right? Like really happy. And how many times have you been really sad, unhappy? Not so many times. There's many times when you were laughing, smiling. There's many times when tears were rolling down your face. Many times. This is life. And it is one leading to the other. It is not two things that are happening in life. Like birth is leading to death, isn't it? They're not two things. I mention that all the time. Birth and death is a very nice way to contemplate the suffering of suffering and the suffering of change. Birthdays is something we celebrate every year, right? Unless you're over 40, maybe. Then the tendency... 29th of February. So usually the tendency goes down the higher the age. But we celebrate it every year. We like celebrating birth. We're happy and we see a newborn child. It makes us happy. It makes us smile. And when we see death, it makes us scared. Doesn't it? Seeing a corpse makes us kind of scared. Being confronted with death always puts the smile out of your face right away. If someone tells you, like, in recent terrorist attacks, 20 people in so-and-so have been violently killed, no one smiles. But there were newborn children there and there, everyone smiles, everyone is happy. So we are relating towards death and birth as if they were two things. They have nothing to do with one another. That's why we celebrate one and despise the other. Because we feel they are two things. Two nouns, right? It doesn't look like one process. So suffering and happiness is exactly the same. We love the one, we hate the other. If we feel happy, we want to feel happy. And so we do a lot of things to be happy. We go to work, even though we don't like it. But we get paid by the end of the month. We work very hard, so we get a few weeks of vacation every year. We work most of the time. We do things to be happy, but most of the things we do are actually creating stress. Pollution, war, greed. All our happiness is our happiness that makes you lock your door at night. Have you ever noticed? It's your possessions, the stuff you work so hard for. It's the fear that makes you lock. Like our happiness is like this. It's a bit like eating really, really good tasting poison in food, and then complaining about food poisoning later, saying, whoa, why is there food poisoning? We have to find a solution. And then we cook more poisoned food. So it's a bit of a cycle like this. Otherwise, if what you consider to be happy and nice, if you keep doing it, are you getting happier and happier and happier and happier or not? You can put it to the test, right? It's not some sort of philosophy. I'm not trying to make you guys depressed by some sort of weird philosophy that everything is suffering. But notice for yourself, you need to put it to the test. Don't just believe what I say. Put it to the test. If you feel that something makes you happy, sustain it. See, if it really makes you happy, it should make you happy. With every minute that passes, you get more happy, right? Like, let's say you're in the hot sun and so you really want to go into the cold pool. You feel the pool will make me happy, so you go into the pool. What will happen? The longer you stay in the pool, do you get happier and happier and happier? No. There's some sort of peak point. The first moment when you get out of the hot sun is like, fantastic. You know why that is? This is just simply the previous suffering coming to an end. That's feeling good. But then the next suffering starts. It's the suffering of the pool. And it will get more and more intense until you really have to leave the pool, right? So the first moment that you left the pool is like, great. And so you rub yourself up with your towel. Now I'm nice and dry again. And the fingers slowly become unwrinkled. But then there's the sun again. So you go into 7-Eleven because it's nice and cool to get a cold drink. And it's the suffering of 7-Eleven. You cannot sustain it. If it was pure pleasure to be in a 7-Eleven, you would just stay there and you just get constantly happier and happier. It's like 7-Eleven brings you all the way to nirvana. But that's not true. You have to leave the 7-Eleven after a while. Yeah. Because you look, all these doorbells in the 7-Eleven, they're just so annoying. So you need to find some silence. So you go into the silent area. It's nice and quiet here. It's the suffering of silence. Soon it will end up in boredom. And so there is the suffering of boredom. And you have to still that one. And so you take out your phone and you check where to find a nice restaurant to eat some food, because there's the suffering of hunger. So you start eating. But you're not just continuing to eat. You have to stop eating. That's the suffering of change. If you can find anything in life, anything, any emotion, any feeling, any thought, any interaction with other people that is purely pleasurable, that does not turn into suffering if you sustain it. Now some people, some philosophers or some romantic people, they say, Tobi, what about love? Doesn't that sound nice? Love? So first of all, most people have different ideas about love. What is love? Does it mean a man and a woman, or does it mean loving everyone as they are? And what does that even mean? How am I supposed to do that? If someone is grumpy, can I also love them? All these kind of things. There's a lot of confusion about love. So what do we mean? If it's man and woman, we say, I love kissing or I love hugging. Then sustain that. Put it to the test. Sustain a kiss, sustain a hug. If you like sex a lot, sustain sex. It turns all into suffering. Every single thing. Whatever it is. We cannot sustain it precisely because it is suffering. It is only pleasurable because some previous suffering is replaced for a short while. Like you're bored and lonely, so you meet your friend. Nice. Until you get bored with your friend, you need to get out and back home to quietude. I guess you all understood the suffering of change by now. And I encourage you to have a look at this in daily life. We very often feel that this is going to be great, but keep your mindfulness and look, is it really great? The mind likes to Photoshop things. It likes to Photoshop something bad into something absolutely terrible. This is terrible. And then after a while it changes, and then the mind again Photoshops it into, wow, that is, who would have thought? This is awesome. This is great. So our mind is changing all the time, therefore our experience of life is changing all the time. It's important to look at that and to understand this mind as it's playing. Because then we can look through it. The third type of suffering is the so-called suffering of the clinging aggregates. Now that's a very fancy term again. The suffering of the clinging aggregates. So what is the clinging aggregates? The aggregates are, now I make it simple for today, it's just body and mind. And clinging means that we feel as if we were the owner of body and mind. Or we feel that as if we were body or mind. So when someone looks at a photograph of you, they say, that's you. Oh, what are you doing in Paris? But it's just a photograph. It's not really you, isn't it? Similarly, the body, is it really who you are? Are you a body? Are you a mass of flesh and bones? Tissue, fluids. All the stuff that a body is made of, is that who you are? Are you a bunch of atoms? Then there's also the mind and its content. Are you what you think? Are you what you feel? Are your feelings yours? Do they belong to you? Are you the owner of them? Are you the owner of your mind? All that. This means clinging. We are identified with our objects. We forget that these are actually all objects of awareness, aren't they? It's not who you are, they are your object. You're looking right at it. Awareness is perceiving it. So how can you be it? How can you be the body when the body is appearing to you? How can you be the mind and its content when it's appearing to you? Now this is the most subtle one to understand, the most subtle type of suffering, the suffering of clinging to things, to clinging to views and ideas and opinions and fear and whatnot. We're clinging to it. We think it's, I am scared. We're not seeing that it's just fear, and fear comes and goes. It's not me and not mine. It's just fear. But we start owning it, don't we? And it becomes a huge problem. And we start expressing it and sharing it. It becomes even a bigger problem. We're unable to put things down, let them go. This is the root of suffering. Clinging or holding is the cause of suffering. As soon as you let go, no problem. As soon as you realize, well, it's just the universe at work. Not me making the universe work. Just elements working. That's it. And these elements are not owned or governed by anyone. That's the big delusion that keeps the whole thing going. And that's quite subtle and difficult to look through. In order to really understand that properly, the mind has to be very quiet and strong, because it's very, very fine, difficult to understand. So these are the three types of suffering, the three types of stress. The first one, most easy to understand. Second one, bit more difficult. And the third one, the most subtle point. But all of them are stressful. Maybe to summarize them again, the first one is what hurts. The second one is what feels great but causes hurt. And the third one is that we feel somehow as being here and the universe there. I am here and the universe is all around me. Isn't it? Doesn't it feel like that? I'm here and I'm looking at the universe. The universe is my object, you know. Some people, they go to church and they say, if you ask them, what do you do? I'm going to pray to God. Then who are you that God appears to? Even God appears to you. Huh? Who are you? Who is going to church then? If God is everything, who is going to church? If God is everywhere, why go to church? If God is everything, isn't He this too? And the content of my mind? And so who am I that I go to church and I pray to God? God is my object. I'm looking at God somewhere up there and I'm asking Him questions. At the same time that I think that God is everything. Doesn't make any sense. Similarly, for a Buddhist that thinks he needs to go to a temple to pray to the Buddha, it doesn't make any sense either. The Buddha is not somewhere around you, not somewhere out there, waiting to be discovered. Nirvana, the end of suffering, is not to be found somewhere out there at certain places or in certain groups or with a special technique. It is found only if you put everything down. You give everything up. You own nothing. That what remains after completely giving up everything, this is nirvana. I'm saying giving up, I'm not saying getting rid of. This is not active. You're not pushing for it. You let go of pushing. You're not lazy, lying back and waiting for nirvana. You let go of waiting too. You let go of laziness too. Whatever that comes to your mind right now, you let go of that. All of it. You let go of the body, you let go of your friends, you let go of everything. You let go of your enemies, you let go of your perceptions, your opinions, your views, everything. You put it all down, realizing I own nothing. There's nothing that's me, there's nothing that's mine. That's the highest understanding. The most sublime truth. And that, of course, leads to the end of suffering because no one's there to suffer. There's nobody suffering the universe anymore. Does that make sense? Intellectually, at least. If there is nobody there to suffer the universe, is there still suffering? Yeah, suffering goes away if the sufferer is not found. Suffering needs to attach to a sufferer. There needs to be a sufferer of suffering. Otherwise, it's not your suffering then. That's at the center point. So the famous sentence that the Buddha has said, kind of as the essence of his teachings, is nothing whatsoever should be clung to. Someone asked him actually, what's the essence of your teaching? And he said, so nothing whatsoever should be clung to. Hold nothing. Even more short, let go. Whatever it is, let go. Right here, right now, let it go. Don't hold. Doesn't mean getting attached to not holding. Even letting go, you let go of that too. You drop everything. So the understanding, our intellect cannot grasp that. So don't try to let go trying to grasp it. Then you have no stress. Well, I have to understand that. I have to digest that. Don't. Let it go. See, there is no stress of having to digest it. It's that simple. Did you understand that? Then let it go too. Let go of your understanding too. That's the path to freedom. That's the path to being unburdened, holding nothing, being like space. Okay? Thank you too.